Hey everyone, good morning. Welcome to our 10 a.m. For me, this is bright and early. I'm more of a night guy, but our 10 a.m. Zoom session. Great to have everyone here for BAM this week, our broker agent mastermind. And we do have a good group here today. I think lots of questions with all of this crazy nonsense going on with the NAR and these wonderful new rules that we get to work with. So really excited about that. Today I wanted to kind of review, for the most part, review, because even though we've gone over this week after week after week, there's still quite a few agents who have kind of missed the flow of it. As a matter of fact, they're probably going to be late to today's session, the same agents, if they attend today. Some of them won't even attend, so hopefully they'll see the video. And but I wanted to do a little bit of review. But the big thing is, now that the NAR is now we've got these new rules that are actually in effect, I wanted to give time for Q&A. So I'm going to go through our game plan, our playbook of what we're doing as a brokerage sort of quickly. And then I'd like you to share any questions you might have, because there's the big thing, and Scott and I were talking about this a little bit this morning. The big thing is there's lots of agents and from other brokerages in particular that are confused as heck, and so their confusion causes some of our agents to be confused, because they're saying things as if it's fact when in fact it's incorrect. So let me get into my slides a little bit, and then I'll share for 10 or 15 minutes, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. I think I've got too many screens open here. So okay. So first thing I want to reiterate, don't get caught up in legalism. A lot of people create rules to make sure we don't break the real rules. Okay, and that drives me crazy. I don't like the rules that are there, but let's sure as heck not create new rules to make sure we don't create the other rule or break the other rules. It's like down in Lexington, Kentucky. If you've not been in that area, I know we have a bunch of agents there, and you're used to this, but if you haven't been to Kentucky, it's the horse farms are stunning. And you'll go down there and you'll see these expensive 10-20 million dollar horse farms, and they'll have a fence, but then they'll have a second fence. And why do they have two fences? Well, the reason is because they don't want the horses to get close enough to the real fence to be able to jump it. So they created a second fence. So there's two layers of fences to keep those horses from being able to jump over the ultimate fence. And I see a lot of people that are legalistic. They'll come up with another set of rules to make sure we don't break the real rules. I think even the Cincinnati exclusive right to sell listing agreement is an example. And that's just one example, but all over different regions, they're coming up with these new forms and everything. And a lot of it's creating rules to make sure we don't break the real rules. Well, I would say let's keep things simple. Let's focus on the real rules. Let's not get distracted. And by the way, don't let other people from other brokerages get you distracted on what the real rules are, because a lot of times they have rules for their brokerage, and that's fine. That's fine. They can have their rules, but that doesn't mean we have to incorporate their rules into our rules. For instance, some brokerages are national brokerages, right? So they have to create extra forms and paperwork to make sure that they are compliant in all 50 states. Well, we don't have to do that. So if you see a form from another brokerage, it may or may not be helpful. Maybe we could incorporate that, but just because they have a certain form to make them compliant in 50 states doesn't mean that we have to include all of those forms. So, by the way, this is important. Did you see my T-shirt for today? I don't know if you can read that. Everything I say will be on the exam. Okay. Just so you know, everything I say will be on the exam. So make sure you pay attention. Sometimes maybe you're in classes where some student would ask that, is this going to be on the test? Well, everything's going to be on the test. So make make sure you pay attention. Okay. And it really is because it's funny because we're getting all kinds of questions right now from agents, and a lot of the questions are great questions because NAR has created a massive fog of confusion, and I understand. But then sometimes we get questions that are because some agents are completely asleep at the wheel and don't pay attention to any of the emails, any of the texts. And I'm just saying, if you're going to do business in this culture, in this climate, you've got to pay attention. You've got to be paying attention to the rules of the game, okay? Or you're going to get thrown out of the game. So, but we have to be careful not to be legalistic. And we have a very simple plan. Okay, here is our simple plan. We've got There are four types of agreements you can use when you're working with a buyer. My recommendation is to use a Plum Tree loyalty agreement, and we've emailed that out. Dot Loop apparently is on a backlog right now, so they don't have all of the forms and everything ready. I'm guessing they are buried in creating new forms for all the different brokerages, and also it's on the slow track right now. But we have emailed it out to you as a PDF, so you can use that, print it out. You can set it up in Loop yourself to send it out to someone for signature. But that Plum Tree loyalty agreement is a game changer because all of the other brokerages are going to be sending out these 4 and 5 page contracts that start out with the verbiage that says, this is a legally binding contract. And it's just absurd. Like, imagine that you were to go to a car dealership to look at a new car, and before they let you open the car and sit down in it to take a look, they say, "Oh, wait. We want you to come to our office, come in here, and we want you to fill out this 4 page contract before you sit in the car." You'd be like, "No way, man, I'm out of here." So we've come up with a less intimidating, more user friendly approach, and that's through our Plum Tree loyalty agreement. So I would encourage you to be using that, and it is an exclusive buyer agency agreement. Now, the second form that we have is the touring agreement, and this agreement is good as a first step in meeting with a client. If you don't know them, maybe they're an internet lead, but the touring agreement is very simple, and it says, "I'm going to show you homes for free. I'm willing to do this for 7 days or however many days you want to plug in there, and I'm not going to charge you for this." So it meets the requirement of NAR that says that your fees have to be spelled out. Well, it is spelled out. You're working for free. Okay. But let me just say, you don't want to get all the way to a purchase contract just by having a touring agreement. You want to make sure prior to filling out a purchase contract that you have that loyalty agreement in place. And then you can always use the state board of realtor agreements. You can use local board of realtor agreements, no problem. Some of you love to have a huge contract, a watertight contract that nobody can slip out of, that we can absolutely sue them eventually down the road. And some of you have built a business with those forms already, and that's great. If you are already skilled in presenting that, you don't have to change. Do what makes sense for your business, but you do have those four options. Now, our central game plan is that you need to set up a buyer strategy session as quickly as you can when you're involved with a buyer. Okay. If you've been working with buyers so far and like over the last couple weeks or months, and you haven't yet had a buyer strategy session and you haven't gotten a loyalty agreement signed, now's the time to do it. So, and it can be very simple. It can be a 10-minute or 15-minute meeting. And there's 4 ways you can do this session, the strategy session. You can do it on a phone call. You can do it on a Zoom call. You can do it in person at a office or at a coffee shop, or you can do it in the driveway at the first house that you're showing on that day. Now, if you do this strategy session in the driveway, my recommendation is that you shorten that and you actually go with the touring agreement. But you want to, as quickly as you can in that first week, I'd be trying to schedule a buyer strategy session with them where you sit down and basically it's pretty simple. Your buyer strategy session outline, you want to start out by talking about their needs, ask tons of questions, find out where they are in the process, make sure they get pre-approval and understand how to get pre-approval. Maybe make sure they understand what agency is. Make sure they understand the complexity of the process and the potential disasters that can come up as a part of the process. And your focus, your central theme that you want to communicate is that it's a very complicated process. It's not like buying a toaster. This is a very complicated process, and I'm going to hold your hand through the process to make sure we make it very simple. And it's also a very dangerous process because lots of big mistakes can take place along the way, but you're going to make sure it's safe for them. So it's going to be safe and it's going to be simple. And that's your brand that you're going to push. Then you get to the point where you talk about your compensation. And the way I would present compensation is I would say, hey, I'm a buyer's agent. I get paid to do what I do. I charge 3%. That's what I would charge. You can charge what you want. But I would say I charge 3% for my services. And most of the time that's paid by the seller. Occasionally, it's not paid by the seller. When it's not paid by the seller, then it would be added to your closing costs as part of your fees. Does that make sense? So that's the way I would close it. Okay, great. If that makes sense, if you don't mind, sign here. And this is a state form they require us to have, but go ahead and sign right here. Now they might bring up an objection like, well, we don't have money. We don't have money to pay for a buyer's agent. Okay, that's no problem. We can the our biggest strategy will be to negotiate it into the purchase contract and just say as we present the offer, by the way, we want the seller to pay buyer's agent commission of 3%. So that would be my number one strategy would be to work it into the purchase contract. The second thing we can do if you want, like if you're pretty set on not doing that or on paying my commission directly, we can limit it to listings that only are willing to pay a buyer's agent commission. We could just, eliminate the ones that aren't willing to do that. So at that point, you give them the idea or the freedom to make those choices. So that's how I would go through that conversation. And then here's how to simplify everything. When working with buyers, this is what I would do. I wouldn't waste time calling agents and asking them about commissions. You're going to show 10 or 15 homes on a Saturday. I'm not going to text all of them. Now, you can, no problem if you want to do that. I wouldn't. I would just go look at all the houses, and then when it comes time to write a contract, I would write in that the buyer's going to pay this towards buyer uh, commissions. Now, sometimes the seller might say, "Well, I'm willing to pay 2%. I'm willing to pay 1%. I'm willing to pay $1,000. I'm not willing to pay anything." That doesn't matter anything to me. My fee is 3%. So as I write the purchase contract, I'm going to say uh, seller agrees to pay 3% towards buyer's agent commission. So that's the way I would word that. And now there are some questions like, well, wait a minute, I thought we weren't able to have the sellers pay towards the commissions. Well, yeah, they can. And you can't advertise it in the MLS, but they can pay that if it's in the purchase contract. Uh, when working with sellers, simply make this your automatic response to buyers' uh, uh, make this your automatic response. This is what I would say. When I'm working with a seller and all these agents are texting me about commission, I would you can either tell them, yep, sure, 3% commission, 2%, no problem with that. But it's an even better answer is to say buyer's agent commission is dependent upon the strength of the offer. Okay. Now, another, let me see here if I can get to it. Um, another thing. This is in our Facebook group. I posted this yesterday, but I wanted to make sure everyone has seen this. This is if I was in a listing presentation meeting with a seller, this is the way I would work that conversation. Personally, I would present my commission as I always have. For me, I would put it like this. I'd say I charge 5%. 2.5% goes to the buyer's agent, and 2.5% stays with our brokerage for our listing fee. If I find the buyer personally, which I do that a lot, I would be willing to drop my fee to 4%. That way I get a bonus and some money, and you save money. So does that make sense? That's the way I would describe it. Now, at some point, they might say, well, wait a minute. I heard we don't have to pay buyer's agents anymore. At that point, I would clarify and I would say, well, in just about every transaction, sellers are still going to be paying the buyer's agent commission. That's because most buyers don't have the cash up front to pay that. So if you want to list your property without being willing to pay a buyer's agent commission, then you're effectively going to eliminate 80 to 90% of the market since they won't have that money up front. As you I'm sure know by basic laws of economics, if you reduce the number of potential buyers, then that will directly affect the price you get for your home. So if you want to get the maximum price for your home, then you're going to want the maximum amount of traffic coming through your home. So my recommendation is to go ahead and pay the commission. So that's the way I would frame that. And I would also let them know that it's important to remember also that buyers are the ones who pay all the commissions anyway. Sellers only pay commissions from the money they get from the buyers. So that's a big misconception. So in essence, the buyers are still paying their agent, but they're just financing it through a loan which spans 20 or 30 years. And historically, 70% of homes that offer 2% or less than 2% to a buyer's agent end up never selling. So, so that's the way I would frame it. And if they said, well, I don't want to offer a commission to a buyer's agent, I would say, fine. We can throw it out there. We'll see what happens. Keep it in mind. There's a great chance that they're going to be wanting you to pay that. Get emotionally ready for that because that's probably the way it's going to happen. But I would go ahead and list it, especially I wouldn't have done it before, but now that there's all this misinformation out in the market, I would go ahead and list it. And then, especially in that situation, if you list one without a commission, in particular, in that situation, um, I would put it out there that um, when you get inquiries, I would say the buyer's agent commission will be based on the strength of the offer. So that's in particular in that situation. So that's my content. But this is bonus content here. Um, I was noticing this is just our Cincinnati market. And I can do this for all of our markets, but Cincinnati, we started first in Cincinnati, so that tends to be our strongest market. And what we're doing in Cincinnati, we're trying to replicate everywhere in all of our markets. We're in about 20 different markets. So this is just our Cincinnati market, though. But this is the rank of brokerages by agents being gained or the volume gained in the market. So if you notice in Cincinnati, theoretically we're number two, although we just added three more agents. That's not reflected here. So we were very specifically above Sipsey Klein. But Sipsey Klein has 810 agents, and we have 183 just in Cincinnati. And so our net change Um, I don't know. Oh, that's a different. That's on units. That's another number. But one of the reasons why Sipsey Klein has a big number that they've added is, and this is the net number. So Sipsey Klein added 255 agents, but 210 of that was because they bought a brokerage. So they went out and paid lots of money to get 210 agents. So of all of that, that's a little bit artificial, but they've lost 197 agents. So in reality, other than buying a brokerage, they've added about 40 agents, but they lost 197. Okay. So we're a lot healthier than them, even though as of today they're ranked up here. But we've added, so this is the way it goes because it's a crazy market, right? Lots of agents are coming and going, lots are leaving. But so we've gained 94 agents just in Cincinnati, lost 37 because most of the time it's because agents are just getting out of the business. But we've got a net gain of 57. That puts us squarely in first place for growth for this market. Now, if you look at the size, this is what's really interesting. I'm sorting it by the size of agents. Sorry, it's taking a little bit long here. Um, if you look at the biggest brokerages in Cincinnati, I sure hope it works because for some reason it's not. There we go. It's there. So these are the biggest brokerages in Cincinnati. You have Coldwell Banker, Sipsey Klein, Comey. So see, they've got 988 agents, 810, 651. EXP has 400. So we're down here. We're just the number of agents counts. We're down here, but we're number one for growth right now. And we're now the thing I want you to see, if you look at the net change, agent movement, net change, they are all declining. The biggest one, Coldwell Banker, has lost their net. They've added 220 agents, but they've lost 300. Sipsey Klein has lost 197 agents. Comey and Shepard has lost 145 agents. EXP has lost 241 agents. Keller Williams Advisors, they've lost 148. Huff has lost 87. And then you come down here, and we're the first brokerage that has a net change that we've actually added 57 agents, other than Sipsey Klein that bought a brokerage. Okay. Now, why did I take you through this? The big thing I want you to see, the big thing I want you to see is there's a big opportunity for recruiting agents right now. We have the model that fits for a real estate market that's shaky. And so you can create a passive income by recruiting agents. And we've got some agents out there who are killing it right now. They're meeting with agents every week, introducing them to me, and they're killing it by recruiting agents. And you can do that. If you recruit an agent, we'll pay you $1,000 when they join, and then we'll pay you $100 per month every time, or not per month, but per closing. And hopefully they're closing a property every month. And so, and I want you to understand there's a mass exodus from the big brokerages right now. Lots of people are leaving. There's lots of uncertainty. Things are getting shaken up. And this is a perfect time to be doing what you can to draw in agents. And we will compensate you for that. That is our profit sharing right there. So wanted to get you involved in, and all you have to do is introduce them to me through a text message string, get their permission, and just let them know, hey, we're looking for great agents, and you're a great agent. Would you be opposed to me introducing you to Chris? And then introduce them to me, and I'll recruit them, and we will compensate you um, generously for your efforts. So, one other thing, Scott Reif, our managing broker for the state of Ohio, he was mentioning a form that's the Cincinnati, or no, the state form of it's a compensation form. Scott, can you explain what you were telling me in before our call today?
Sure thing. Let me see, get into the share mode here. Can you all see that? I'm a little
Yep.
for screen sharing challenged, so just wanted to make sure. So this is hot off the press. We literally, as I was logging into BAM, my email goes off, and Ohio has new forms. Yay, forms! We're seeing so many forms. Forms are coming out our ears. If I like had a nickel for every time I said form the last 2 weeks, it would be really cool. So, but this one I liked, and it had the Don Hale actually had a question yesterday. She says, "What do I do if a buyer comes to me who's looking at my open house, or because she, and I believe she's very much correct in this. She believes a lot of buyers are going to be going directly to the listing agents. They're nervous about signing these buyer broker agreements, so they might be going directly to the listing agent. So, how do you explain to them your role, that your fiduciary duty is for the seller and not them? So, this is a cool form, and it starts off by saying consumer. Who's the consumer? A party to a real estate transaction who may receive information from a real estate agent but is not represented by that agent. And it goes on to explain the COLA, the loyalty. Remember that from real estate school? Loyalty, obedience, confidentiality, care. Those are the things that we as a fiduciary offer our clients. But if they're coming in unrepresented, they're riding in with no agent. This is a really nice way to explain that to them. So I thought it was a form that actually added some clarity, some transparency, which is kind of unusual for forms these days, and that we would this would be good to add to our forms arsenal to share with clients. So also, I've been going through questions here, and Marcy had an interesting one as you were showing the market share growth for different companies. She asked where Key fit in there, because obviously she comes from Key, and Key has a somewhat similar compensation model to ours. It'd just be interesting to see how, if they're showing up on the radar there, if their market share is big enough to be on there. But that was Marcy's question.
They are on here. And this is for Cincinnati, and I can get it for I can also do this for Northeast Ohio or whatever market. But in Cincinnati, they currently have 31 agents. They've gained six, but they've lost 18. So they have uh, a loss of 12 agents. So that's when you're talking about a brokerage of 31, that's about a 33 or 40% decrease just from that one brokerage. So that's what's happening with Key in Cincinnati, but I can look it up later for you as well for Northeast Ohio.
Marcy just she has those stats, and she said they just lost 80, or they have lost 80 in Northeast Ohio. Not picking on Key, but she was curious there.
Well, it's the thing that you have to know is the big. Okay, so it comes out to this, and I love this Warren Buffett quote, and I've said it many times, and most people look at me confused when I say it. Uh, but he says, "When the tide goes out, you find out who's been swimming naked." Right? It's a hilarious statement, and that's because and what he's saying is, when the market pulls back and there's a struggle, a change, a shift in the market, you find out whose business structure is actually sound. Okay. So in these big brokerages that are, you know, taking so much of their agents' money, and the tide goes out, the agents are all like, whoa, wait a minute. Like now, everything's unstable and I'm still giving all this money to my broker. Why am I doing this? So that's why I think we have a massive opportunity for market share. The other thing, just as an individual agent, you have a great opportunity for market share because of our buyer agreements are so simple. And so I would be scooping up buyers that are frustrated with the other agents. And the other thing, those of you that are on this call, we've got 71 right now. And then I know tons of other agents will be watching this, but you guys are the ones that you're putting in the time for training, and so that's going to set you apart from other agents that are just kind of goofing off, not paying attention. So that's an opportunity for you with market share because you're going to be ready. You're going to be prepared. You have a plan and you're going to dominate. So kudos to you for taking the time for training and learning and growing and adapting to the market. So, any
Chris,
other
may
thoughts?
I have a comment.
Sure.
Just this morning, I was looking at Lab Coat Agents. I know that's a platform that a lot of us subscribe to, kind of like our Facebook Plum Tree Agent Connect platform. And I see a lot of, agents from all companies on there, and they're not getting good answers. They're giving, commentary. Their agents are, you know, proposing that this might be the way to do it, and then other agents are thinking that that's the actual way to do it, and lot of stuff with wrong turns. And I was just commenting how we're pretty lucky that we have you, we have Scott, we have really great leadership, great direction. So for our agents in Plumtree, please don't go to lab coat agents. Maybe, see
Yeah.
what other people are doing, but they're not getting the right answers there. There was some comment today about CMAs, including, the being worried about including the fact that commissions were always included in the price and now they may not be, and how that's going to upset the apple cart with appraisals. But appraisals always have been inclusive of the commissions. So somehow it's always going to be in there. Or I'm sorry, if you're going to write your commissions as a concession, then that's a different story. But the language is important. So, topic for another day. I just wanted to shout out that Lab Coat Agents isn't the greatest resource for us as agents.
Yeah, that's a great point. And part of the confusion too is, and I see this on Lab Coat Agents a bunch, is that you'll have a big brokerage like take EXP for instance. EXP is a great brokerage. They've got a different model for sure. But they were one of the ones that were specifically named in the lawsuit, and they were hung out to dry by NAR. They weren't protected by NAR. So EXP has so much to lose. So they've got extra stuff that they've created extra forms and extra documents. And then I hear agents saying, "Well, wait a minute, we need that form." Well, no, we're not them. We don't have that exact same liability like they do. And the other thing is, like just because of their own personal liability, they've said, okay, forget it. We're not paying any buyer's agents. It's if the sellers want to pay them directly, that's fine, but we're not, as a brokerage, going to share any commissions. And that's great. No problem with that. But that doesn't mean that's some people listen to that and they say, "Oh my gosh, this is now the law is that sellers can't pay buyer's agent or pay the brokerage, and the brokerage can't share a commission." Well, that's not the law. That's a law for EXP. So, uh, but yeah, lab coat agents is where a lot of that confusion, the fog, is kind of permeating the air there. So, what other thoughts or questions or comments? Selena.
Hey, Chris. Yes. This kind of goes into what Marcy was saying. I was watching or looking at something on Facebook about Howard Hanna and how if you purchase through them, they will put like 0.5% of their commission to the buyer for doing business with them. And somebody in the comments had mentioned, isn't this like a form of tying?
Exactly. That's the first thing I
And how
thought.
are they not getting in trouble?
Well, they haven't gotten in trouble because it's about 48 hours old, this new policy. I have a feeling that's not going to work. Selena, that's a good insight there because that's exactly what I thought. That's a tie-in agreement. If you work with us and you work with our title company, then we will compensate you in this way. Well, wait a minute, is that legal? That sounds like that might be non-legal. But I had that same thought. And they got covered in the news as if, wow, look, look what they're doing. This is really novel. Well, I don't know. We'll see. Surya, see you have
Yes.
that hand raised there.
Yeah. So, Chris, good morning. Thanks for taking time to answer all our questions here on this morning,
Sure.
today on this session. So, my question to you is like, where should, on the purchase contract, where should I mention to the seller agent, hey, seller agrees to pay buyer agent this much percentage of the commission, actually? So, where can I put that one on the purchase contract? That's my question.
Okay. And Scott, I think you might be you potentially might be have a better grasp of this than me. But my answer, barring something more profound that Scott is getting ready to say, my answer would be in the additional terms and conditions section on the contract. I would just write in, and that covers this for all of our different markets also, by the way. But you could just write a sentence that says seller agrees to pay buyer's agent commission of 3% at closing. And that's the way I would do it. But actually, I'd like to hear Chris Johnson's take because you're down in that Kentucky world and Scott Rife. What do you think, Scott?
As far as putting buyer's agent compensation in the contract, did I hear the question correctly?
Yep, in the purchase contract.
Yeah, new Cincinnati, I think on July 31st has a new contract, and they have incorporated it into the contract. So another beautiful thing about that new contract is you do not need to put initials at the bottom of each page. So what a game changer as you're preparing that offer in .loop. It's so much fun now that you can just go to the bottom and put a signature in. So new Cincinnati contract has it in there. The Dayton contract has changed ever so slightly to just add a notification that there's an addendum for compensation, and then Dayton has come up with like a 2-page addendum. I like the Cincinnati contract better. So if you're in Dayton, I'd recommend using the Cincinnati contract because it's incorporated in there. In other markets, I haven't seen all the contracts yet, but I have looked around, and for example, OAR has not issued a new contract. I don't know what other markets have done as far as updating their contracts, but I see that becoming something that they're going to be releasing those.
Okay, excellent. Chris, what's going on down in Kentucky?
Yeah, so we received an updated offer to purchase contract as well. And I believe it's on line 84. It's a specific section for buyer, broker commission, something like that. Line 84. And it specifically sets out any agreement for compensation between buyer's broker and selling broker. Some do not like that the new contract because we went from 5 pages to 11. But I'm telling everybody, just jump on board with the new contract because what's happening is the old contract does not specifically address commissions. And that would have been something you would write in, like you said. I don't know what other contracts are like, but in the other terms and conditions. But this new one specifically addresses that. So I feel like it's good just for everyone, our Lexington agents listening, just to get used to using that so that you don't forget. Because if you forget and you just take it for granted, hey, I texted them and they said it, or I called them. In the end, you could have a debate or perhaps an issue with getting paid.
Okay. And by the way, for those of you who may not be aware of it, Chris is our Kentucky managing broker. So if you get stuck on a uh, in a deal transaction or something, you need some support, he's your guy to contact. He can help you. He's been around the block. He's got many years experience and he's a broker. He's got that licensure. And if you need contracts or things signed by a broker or cancellations, he's your guy down there. Now, I was curious. Let me also throw this to Marcy and Perry. Sorry to put you on the spot, but I know you've got the Northeast Ohio contracts down pat. What's the best way to handle commission uh, at requesting that the seller pay buyer's agent commission in Northeast Ohio?
There's a form. It's one of the addenda that goes with that. Not any more new contract. Last year the state created the 10-page purchase agreement, and there are 4 addenda that can be affiliated with it. One of them is the buyer broker compensation, and it spells it out exactly where each piece of the money is coming from, but that would be part and parcel to the offer itself.
Okay, excellent. And I especially like that you refer to it as addenda, because when I refer to addenda, people, you mean they correct me, you mean addendums? And I like that. I like that you actually know what plural of addendum is. So, um, cool. Any other thoughts or comments or questions?
I'd like to share a little something. I recently got an offer that kind of put the compensation in the buyer's request. It was read like this. I had to pull it up on the other screen here. Is a term of the buyer's offer that the seller agrees to pay 3% of the gross selling price to the office in order to satisfy the compensation terms outlined in buyer's representation agreement. I found that interesting that they kind of put it off on the buyer's requesting them doing this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. I can understand that. I don't particularly like the verbiage there because it sounds kind of confusing. I'm sure it's one of these offices that has a legal staff that was trying to justify their own existence within the office, and so they made something very complicated and wordy. But it's confusing, and that's what I don't like. I don't like it when you have confusing verbiage on these contracts. But I think that gets the job done. And technically, it is the buyer that is requesting it because it does satisfy their legal contract with you as a buyer's agent. So I can understand the verbiage, and technically it is correct to word it like that, but it doesn't have to be worded like that would be my position. So any other thoughts or questions or comments out there?
Hey, Chris, question.
Yeah.
So, our area, we're still seeing 2.5% on pretty much everything on before it disappeared, for the commission. So any that I've asked about has been pretty much 2.5%, that they're offering buyer's agent. So on that buyer agreement, since it's pretty typical, which would be nice to be able to get that bump to 3% because that's what we're contracted for. Should I write the 3%? I know you can't tell me exactly the number to write, but just because we're really only seeing 2.5s, except a rare case of a 3. So should I go with what our current market is basically offering?
I think that probably makes sense. If that's what you would tend to make anyway, that I would probably go with what the market is. That's the one side of it. But I know we have some agents probably on here today who say, nope, 3%, darn it, I'm gonna get it. And they probably will, because they'll justify their own service and existence in a good way. And they can sell their services. So in a way, I mean, the way that the loyalty agreement is written, your buyer would basically pay the difference. So they might be paying half of a percentage point.
Right.
And if you have the ability to negotiate that, yeah. And you can also just say, I mean, part of negotiating, a very good salesperson, one of the best I've ever known, told me early on in my career, the best thing you can do as a salesperson is stop talking. And so I usually say, yep, so this is, my fee is 3% or two and a half or whatever that might be. And I lay it out. It's generally split. Actually, if you're working with a buyer, I just say this is my fee. If I'm paid by the seller, then you don't have to worry about it. If they refuse to pay it, then it'll show up on as part of your closing costs. And then I would just be quiet.
And just see what they say.
Yeah, because
If that makes sense, is that your
and it says in prominent lettering on the thing that commissions are negotiable. So
Right.
it's definitely, it could be a point of negotiation. So I think you'll just have to get used to what makes sense for your personality and your market, because
Right.
each market's a little bit different. And you might try it for a while at 2.5% and try one that's 2.75 and maybe do one that's 3 and just see
Kind
what
of see,
you're
and
able to
maybe
do.
that the sellers would actually pay that, which they typically, may not have. So
One thing I'll throw out there too is a lot of agents, uh, they they negotiate on the points or half points. Like, okay, I'll do 2% or I'll do 3%, or I'll do 2% or I'll do 2.5%. I would suggest considering also negotiating on the quarter percents. Like, my fee is 2.75%. My fee is, what, negotiate on the quarter percents and you can skim off, another $500 or $1,000 that way. So
and
that's
it's not necessarily that it's a 5% commission. We're seeing some of the larger companies, they're charging 6 and 7. They're just only offering up 2.5. So I told you about a couple interviews, and one of the interviews, they said we always charge 7%, but we offer up 2.5. And so it may be that the seller's agent can offer more of what the commission they're actually taking versus so it's a little bit uneven here.
Florida is definitely the Wild West or the Wild South. It's crazy. One of the things that bugs me is that they expect and I don't know if it's this way in your market, but in a lot of markets in Florida, they'll request a technology fee or an MLS fee from the buyer's agent commission. So they'll say buyer's agent commission is 2% minus $275 for a technology fee. It's like, what? Why is the buyer agent paying a technology fee to the listing agent? That doesn't make sense. So things like that make my head explode. So
Thank you.
Chris,
okay,
I have a comment on that.
sure.
Hannah, that was an interesting piece of information that you just said. You talked with a company and they say they always charge whatever, a flat fee, and then they offer up. That's a direct example of antitrust law violation. So for them to say that out loud is exactly the opposite of what the whole lawsuit was supposed to uncover, which is commissions are always negotiable.
Right.
Now, if
Yeah.
I understand it correctly, that was a brokerage. They were trying to recruit you. Is that right, Hannah?
Correct.
And you stood strong and you stood on principle. You're still with Plum Tree, so that's great. But so they were saying this is what we do for our agents internally, but they don't promote that widely.
No, it was just a private conversation with the broker. That's just basically his across the board average, I guess you would say. He did name that as this is what we charge, but obviously it was a private conversation, so not advertised.
Okay, well that might make a little bit of a difference. So, cool. But definitely on thin ice. They have to be careful.
Yeah, that's true.
Cool. Any other thoughts or questions or comments?
Chris, Julie Underhees here. Sorry, I had to unmute. I'm like getting ready to get to some showings here, but kind of piggyback on what was her name? She was just talking about commissions. So I belong to the Chamber of Commerce out here in Harrison, and for in-laws for trying to do for sale by owners, and everybody knows of several licensed agents. So anyway, they're like, well, I'm gonna have my friend that I know come over, and he just right off the rip said, yep, I charge 5.5% commission. And it was just presented to him like these sellers for sale by owners don't want to hear that right off the rip, like, this is what I charge. And it completely turned them away. So a success story is I'm going to be picking up 3 transactions because they have 2 houses next door to each other. So I'm getting ready to list 1, then I'll be selling their house, and then I'm going to be relocating them because I sat down with them and I said, hey, everything is negotiable. I will work with you, especially now that I'm going to be listing both houses and relocating you to another house. And it all just made sense to them. They were like, I just don't understand. And I said, now it's more important, even more than ever, to understand the contracts and commissions. And for sale by owners can really, if you don't understand what these contracts are coming in, what, agents are coming in with, you could get yourself in a lot of sticky situation. And they said, you really just made a light about it and just kind of not really stressed about the commission. I said, we'll work with it. And I kind of said, I'll do my commission at 2.5, but we should definitely at least offer 2.5, or 2.5 to the buying agent. And it all just made sense to them. And they're like, yep, cool, let's sign it and let's move on. And I said, we'll work together with all these new documents. And same with my buyers that I've been working with, explaining to them about the commissions. They're like, yep, let's just roll with it. I don't know. It's just, you guys have really, these meetings, like you were saying, the BAM sessions, and just going out there and feeling confident in yourself and just going out there and everybody working together.
That's everything you said there is outstanding. Thank you for sharing that, Julie. And one of the very key, one of the first things I heard you say was you sat down with them. And so I know you're a relational person, and as much as our agents can build relationships with people, it'll go a long way. And the other thing is, I know you're hustling, and I want all of our agents to be go after the business. Don't sit down right now. If you want to milk a cow, okay, this is free. This is just bonus. I'm going to give you some bonus information here today. And if you want to milk a cow, you don't take your stool out in the middle of the field and sit on the stool and wait for a cow to back up to you. You know what I'm saying? You got to go find the cow. You got to go after the cow. So that's your free tip of the day there. So everything else, wasn't free, but this is free. So. All right. What else? Any other questions or comments out there? Did we answer
fast enough to jump in?
Let's do it, Tim. What do you got, man?
Well, a couple points. I'd like to just touch base on what Hannah shared about the 2.5 being the norm. I'm a big collector of quotes, and one of the quotes I love so much is, "You miss 100% of the shots that you don't take." So keep that in mind when you're putting your commission on paper. It's always negotiable anyway, and it's a lot easier to negotiate down than it is to negotiate up. So also, congratulations on the growth, Chris, for Plum Tree. Those numbers you showed were amazing and make me feel proud, even more so than ever, to be able to say, hey, I helped with the recruitment, but also am a part of this company. So congratulations to you.
Thank you, man.
The other thing I wanted to just throw out there as more of a reminder, and to a lot of people, this may be kind of a duh statement. So I contemplated even sharing it, but I just wanted to remind people that we work under Chris's license. He's our broker. So you're going to see a lot of information out on the internet if you're a resourceful person and you like to learn from many sources, especially on YouTube. Things like EXP, and I like to watch Tom Ferry. I like to watch a lot of people to learn different strategies and from different places. But when it really boils down to it, Chris and Plum Tree are going to be on the hook with us if we make a decision that doesn't align with well, we saw this on a YouTube interview from a podcast that we watched about the president of EXP or Real. Well, they're not going to be on the hook on that paper. So just remember, like, you may have heard some different stuff, but just try to align with what Chris is telling us to do, because we do work under his license and he's going to be on the hook with us, along with some other brokers potentially from other states that are a part of Plum Tree as well. So maybe that was falling on deaf ears. Maybe it was a pointless thing to say, but just a quick reminder.
No, that's good. That's yeah, let's keep our lawsuits down. So
Exactly.
let's all stay unified and have a central game plan that we're all sticking to. I appreciate that, Tim.
Yeah.
Tim, are you in your pool now?
I'm literally sitting in my pool right now as you see me on that picture.
Because when you talk, your picture comes up as you in a
I'm wearing
pool.
that
That's
exact.
pretty cool.
That's a current picture. That's actually a live photo.
A little cool this morning for it, but that's why you have the suit on.
That's it. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, cool. Any other questions or comments, input? All right. Well, hey, thanks for taking the time.
Can I just talk? I
Yes.
can't read my hand.
Sylvester, what do you got, man?
Hey, thank you. I watched a similar thing. You shared a video that you were not going to meet us last week, one of the days, and you
Yes.
shared a similar video like this. And I wrote a contract with that statement, and they did a counter with the 2%. I stated 3%. They did a counter with 2%, but we ended up going to the a builder, and I put in that same 3% in an initial offer, and the builder agreed. Normally they say they do 2, but they agreed to do 3.
Nice. Well, that's great. Congratulations. Sounds like you had some good negotiation skills there. That's awesome.
Yeah, thanks to the message you shared.
I'm glad that worked out. Way to go, man. Cool. Well, hey, go recruit some agents. I want you to build a residual income, getting those $100 per transaction for all the agents that you've recruited. My goal is to get you making so much money in residual income that you'll never be able to leave Plum Tree. So that's my goal. I want you to make so much money that you would never even think of leaving. So, but other than that, if you need help and support, I know Scott is excellent at support. He's faster on the messaging than just about anyone I've ever met. And Chris Johnson's great in Kentucky. And but we're definitely happy to help. Have a great week. Go make some money.